So here are 8 hacks that can make raising chicks in a brooder significantly easier, reduce your chore time, and improve the health of your chicks. Number 1, get your chicks used to drinking from a nipple early on, ideally after the first couple of days. The reason for that being is that it becomes old really quickly, cleaning out their water bowl. And if you have a regular drinker where they, get the water from the bottom, they throw in trash so quickly, they might jump on it, roost on it, poop down on it. And it's just a matter of, and not maybe in the first few days, but once they start getting active and start scratching around, you have litter and poop and everything in between in that water, and you have to clean it out several times a day. It gets old really quickly. If you have a nipple-based drinker where they have to poke the nipple to get some water out, and you suspend it ideally or raise it up, have it on a platform, that problem pretty much goes away. And you only need to worry about refilling the drinker, maybe once a day, maybe once every couple of days, depending on the size of your flock and the size of the drinker. So that's a no-brainer, and it took us, I think, 3 or 4 brooder sessions, or flocks really, to figure that out and finally get away with the regular drinker. Number 2, very much related, is to swap out your regular trough feed or whatever you're using for something where chicks have to stick in their head to get to the feed, for the very same reasons, because we had a trough, with cutouts that was fairly long to accommodate maybe 20 or 30 birds. And again, if that's on the ground, they start, even if it's elevated, we had like a little pedestal to elevate the feeder as well as the drinker. That didn't help. They would roost on it, they would poop on it, we would have the pine shavings in it. It was like cleaning it out several times a day. Again, gets very old very quickly. Maybe not with the first flock where everything is cute and you want to check on want to be as much as you can with your chicks. But once you're over that initial excitement phase, and it becomes a chore, and it's something that you can easily avoid by swapping out the feeder. So water and feeder, make sure there is a little to no chance that they're gonna soil it and give you more work at the end of the day. Number 3 is to leverage a deep litter method in your brooder. I mean, you might be used it from your hen house, but you can also apply the same principle to your brooder, where instead of cleaning out the bedding every so often, maybe the bigger they get, the more they poop, the quicker it smells, just keep adding on litter on top. That obviously necessitates a brooder that has a certain depth, so you can keep adding pine shavings or whatever bedding you choose, and to cover it up. It's not going to quite turn into compost, but it keeps it sanitary and healthy for your birds, and it removes or reduces the smell dramatically. So we just keep adding pine shavings or hemp bedding or whatever every couple of days, depending on, you can smell it, you can see it, so play it by ear. But doing that is significantly less work than cleaning everything out and adding fresh bedding. Number 4, don't be afraid to move your chicks outside before the 6-week mark. I know this is the common recommendation, once they're fully feathered out at the 6-week mark, more or less, you can move them outside. You can do that significantly earlier, depending on, where you live in this country, what the ambient temperature is, but more importantly, what the temperature in the environment is that you raise your chicks in. We typically move them outside. We are in Georgia here, and even if temperatures drop close to the freezing point, we usually move them out at the 2 or 3 week mark. And we obviously provide them a heat source outside and wind protection, but that don't necessarily have to be in your living space. They definitely don't have to be in your living space, but even in the garage, it gets dusty. The car might be full of, dust, like in our case, before we move them out. And so you can move them out quicker. Check out our separate video that goes into much more details on why that is, how you can do that, how you can do it safely without obviously harming your chicks. Number 5, leverage, if possible, a mobile brooder that you can, move around. The reason being is because for most of us start raising their chicks somewhere inside, be it in the garage, be it within, the house or whatever. The problem is they're constantly, or in most cases, under artificial light, unless you put them next to a window where they get access to sunlight. In our case, in the garage, there's only artificial light. So what we do is we have a brooder on wheels. We have a separate video on how we built that, so check that out. We're going to link it down below. And so we can just move it back a couple of feet. They're in the garage in the beginning, and then we just push them out so they get sunlight. Obviously, you want to make sure they have an area where there is shade so they don't overheat if it's super hot outside. But we want to get them access to sunlight, to natural sunlight, as quickly as possible, because vitamin D is not only important for humans, it's equally important for animals. And especially during the first few weeks of the chicken's life, you want to make sure you provide them an environment that's as natural and as conducive to optimal health as possible. So giving them access to sunlight is a great idea, and the best way, an easy way to do this is if you have a mobile brooder on wheels that you can just wheel out. Number 6, don't be afraid to supplement their hopefully organic and low PUFA feed with, fresh greens and bugs. Anything from the outside that they would have naturally access to once they're out on pasture, you can bring into the brooder as well. We have the kids collect greens, throw them in, maybe some clover, mealworms, any rainworms that they find, they throw them in. It's fun for the chicks, it keeps them entertained, and it provides them with, a part of a natural diet that's not just the grains we feed them, which is, okay too, obviously, but that shouldn't be the sole source of a chick's or chicken's diet. Number 7, and that really goes back to the beginning of when you first get your chicks. Most people get them from the hatchery, they come in the mail. So we always like to feed them magic water. I think that's a term that Justin Rhodes might have coined. And that's just a combination of, or a mix of filtered water, raw honey, raw apple cider vinegar, and raw garlic, And I'm going to put the exact measurements down in the description, but we typically do it with a gallon of warm filtered water. You don't want to feed them chlorine, because chlorine is a disinfectant that wipes out any good bacteria. That's the same reason why you wouldn't want to drink chlorinated water. Don't feed it to your animals either. Their gut microbiome gets negatively impacted by the chlorine, and you actually want to improve their microbiome in the first few days, because they are typically stressed from the shipping and everything, so their immune system might be compromised already, which goes back to maybe imbalance in their gut microbiome issues. Usually once we run out of that gallon, that's it, we switch over to regular filtered water. But that really helps them in the beginning to boost their immune system, to reduce pasty butt. We have not had any pasty butt since we started doing this, and it's just giving them a better chance to start a healthy life, basically. And then number 8, last one here, is to use a heating plate instead of a heating lamp, for a couple of reasons. One is you have to worry less about a potential fire hazard. I'm a huge fan of heating plates. We have a separate video on this, over heating lamps, even though we occasionally use them as well. But with a heating plate, there is no risk, there is no fire hazard. You don't have to worry, wake up in the middle of the night and double check that your lamp is fully secured. And it's also better, I think, from a circadian rhythm perspective, if the chicks are in complete darkness at night, because out in nature, they would not have a red light bulb either, they would have no light. And so I think red light is probably much better than blue light, or it is much better than blue light, but nevertheless I think no light is more beneficial, so for their circadian rhythm. And that was it. If you like those tips, give it a thumbs up. If you have other tips you want to share, let us know in the comments. We'd love to hear what you have figured out, what has worked for you. Subscribe, stick around, and I hope we'll see you in the next video.